Let's talk a little bit about your personal relationship or concept of psychics before you started making the film, because the way that you discovered, I think, an interest in psychics is a really crazy story.
Yeah. Well, I knew nothing about psychics, and I'd never had a psychic reading before making this film. And what happened was I was filming in Atlantic City for this omnibus project about election night 2016. And I thought I was filming these ironic portraits of Trump's casinos that are bankrupt there. But as the night went on, it became like living in a horror film. It was a nightmare. I woke up the next morning, like so many people, really depressed and lost. And I was waiting at 8 a.m. for my ride to go back to the city at this Atlantic City strip mall, just feeling, devastated, sad, at a loss. And I saw this sign that said $5 psychic readings. And without thinking, I just walked in. And I pulled back this curtain, and there was a table and 2 chairs. And I sat down, and I immediately felt very emotional. Like I was looking in a mirror at my kind of lost state at that moment. And it was really powerful. And I thought, this is crazy. No one's even here. And then this psychic came in and sat down, and she gave a very gentle, comforting 5-minute reading. And I did feel better at the end of it. And I gave her $5. I was getting ready to leave. And she said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm a documentary filmmaker." She said, "Oh, what do you make movies about?" And I said, "Well, I'm finishing this movie about a Zen priest who counsels people who are considering suicide." And she said, "That sounds like my life." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, you wouldn't believe what serious situations people come in here with. They're often at real crossroads in their lives." And I guess I'd thought of psychics as something much more trivial than that, like a kind of silly thing to do for fun at a party. And that was the moment for me where I thought, wow, this could be a film inside psychic sessions, could be a really profound way at looking at this wash of humanity and all of their questions and what they're looking for and what their needs are. So that's where the idea came from.
So how did you pick the psychics? And then also the process by which you found the people who came in for the readings is very interesting. So how the psychics, how the clients?
Yeah. So the psychics, basically I started making the film during the pandemic, during the first wave of COVID in New York. I was living in New York the whole pandemic, and I started to think, this could be the moment to make the psychics movie that I've been kind of dreaming about for a while. So I started getting readings, just not saying I'm making a documentary, just going in, getting readings places. And then my producer, Kyle Martin, came on the project, started doing that too. And then we got a little team of a couple other people getting readings in all 5 boroughs, all over. We got over 100 readings, maybe over 150 in total, and we'd all get together and compare notes, and that's what led to picking the psychics. And I found myself gravitating. At first I thought I might film a storefront psychics, which are a very New York-y thing, but those sessions are quite dry and short. It's like, you will have twins, you will have a long life, you're moving to another city. And you're like, okay. And I found myself drawn towards these psychics operating more at the intersection with psychotherapy, doing these like longer hour and a half long deep dives, where I realized it wasn't just about what's literally being said, it was about the emotional experience of the session. So that's how I found the psychics. But I was choosing people who were operating in that world, but then I was also drawn towards people who had personal depth themselves. And then I started to realize I was being drawn towards people who also, like me, love movies and art and books. And I started to kind of realize, am I picking people who are like these funhouse mirror reflections of myself? Like I'd be in their houses looking at their book collection, like, oh, I have these books, So, but I definitely people who shared my interests in some ways. And so that's how we found the psychics. Yeah.
And then talk about finding the clients.
Yeah.
And then also we can talk about some of the parameters that you might have set up with them, because at the beginning of the film, some of these readings are very emotional. And I'm so curious about making sure that people felt safe in terms of things they were sharing, and they're going to be sharing with millions, hopefully, of other people.
Yes. I don't think any of them were expecting millions of people, honestly, but So the clients we found, so a lot of the psychics in the film, they're not seeing people more than once most of the time. Maybe there's a couple people they see once a year, but usually this is just a one-time encounter between 2 strangers. And that's part of what I loved about it. So I did try to film at the beginning with a couple of the clients that were existing clients of the psychics, but I found it hard to access as a viewer. Like you kind of didn't know what they were talking about. They had a relationship already. So I ended up working with a team, and we had interns who spoke a combined total of over 10 languages. We fanned out across the city. We set up tables outside, in parks, at farmers markets, outside grocery stores. This is all during COVID too. So it's like, where are people going? With signs that said free psychic readings. And so they'd be at these tables and people would come over to them, because I thought it kind of replicated the way I first went into that psychic shop. People would come over and sign up, and then the person at the table would say, we're making a documentary, we're filming dozens and dozens of sessions, would you be open to this being filmed? And if they said yes, they were a contender. I worked with a great story producer who and a couple other people too, who would then do a Zoom kind of pre-interview with the potential client to get to know them and what are they interested in asking about. And then we would just assign these clients to psychics. We wouldn't tell the psychics anything about, who was coming that day, but we kind of matched them, and that's how we found the clients that filmed with them.
You mentioned this thing about a lot of the psychics that you connected with and who are in the film have like theatrical backgrounds. A lot of them talk about wanting to be actors. And this gives you a really interesting way to investigate, is this make-believe? Because like if these people who are already into make-believe stuff are becoming psychics, is it make-believe? Is it real? How did that evolve? Like, was that an original idea that you had when you were planning this, or did that just evolve out of these conversations? Because the way that we see the flow in the film is very organic, and it makes you think about a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I would say what was there at the beginning for me was I felt that it didn't matter if it was real or not, because I felt that the connection between the two people in the room, whether or not you believe that dead grandma is there or not, I feel like the connection between the two people is real. And that is powerful and kind of undeniable. So I liked the idea of the film from the beginning, exploring that question very much, but then saying, that actually doesn't matter in a way. So that was there from the beginning. But what was surprising to me and emerged organically from the process was, I didn't fully understand that a lot of the psychics were former actors. That came out gradually. And at a certain point, it was like 2 of them went to the same acting school. I was like, what? At a certain point, I was like, is this do you have an undergraduate degree in acting? Yes. So I was surprised by that. But it also made sense too in terms of everyone being a creative person, because you're working with your intuition and imagination. And I loved exploring the difference between imagination and reality. And is there a meaningful difference? And what is it? But what really surprised me over the course of the film was the reflections I did on myself as a documentary filmmaker during it, because the psychics are really there witnessing their client, who kind of wants to be told a story about themselves. The psychic's holding a mirror up to the client. And I think that that's what I'm really doing as a documentary filmmaker. I'm witnessing someone and I'm holding a mirror up to them and kind of reflecting what I see. And, a religious belief system, a psychic reading, and art, these are all places where we go to kind of make sense of the world and understand who we are as humans and why things are this way and why life is both joyful and hard. And it came over me at a certain point that, a documentary, for example, and the ending of the film is kind of a nod to this. It is all a construct. It is all artificial, but at the same time, it's real and it's meaningful. And just because something is constructed doesn't mean it can't be meaningful. So I was really surprised at all the parallels I found between myself and them in a funny way.
You also have this moment of like incredible kismet coincidence where you have a psychic who has a client who comes in, and you said they don't know each other, they don't know who's coming in, and it is someone that he knows.
Yes.
And that they sort of have a certain person that they both want to talk about in a way. What was it that like that day on set when you realized, oh my God, these people know each other and they have a lot of the same pain?
Right. Well, what's even crazier about that is that day a client canceled last minute. We were filming in Williamsburg, and someone canceled last minute, and our camera assistant was like, I have a friend who lives 2 blocks away. She seems like the kind of person who might be game for this. Should I just ask her? And I was like, sure. That's who the person was. Isn't that insane? So I'm sorry, what was your other question, Kate?
No, just like, what's it like when they walk in and they see each other and she's like, I know you, we went to school, they went to acting school
together.
They went to
acting school. I mean, there's a degree with this material and these people where there's so many internal connections that it was kind of unbelievable. There's that, the fact this acting connection, I mean, I thought it just gave me chills when it happened. Yeah. And it felt like a very new thing for the psychic and for us. And there's also these internal connections. Psychics have, many of them have similar shared experiences of loss and of loneliness. And so there was just so much overlap. And it just kind of, said to me, we do as humans have these shared internal experiences that are universal. And there's something so amazing about how we can sense and feel that about each other. But I don't know how to explain that level of coincidence. Yeah.
So how do you feel now about psychics, having made this film and meeting so many of them and seeing so many readings? How did that change how you felt?
Yeah, I think I feel like it makes sense to me that so many creative people love seeing psychics. I think it's a really fascinating, powerful experience. And I think I feel the same in that I don't think you have to necessarily believe or not believe in anything to get something meaningful out of it. I really think it's what you bring to it is what you're going to get back from it.